Hello again, everyone. It's great seeing you again, and thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather and 14th day of March 2020. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show once again. Taking a look at the, hazardous weather, or first actually, very windy day up across the eastern North Slope, central and eastern North Slope, and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, with winds actually at about their highest values here in some areas at mid-afternoon. With this is over the on the eastern North Slope at I'm not sure how you pronounce it, so I won't try. But anyway, 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts there, and then AKwx River farther to the west, which is not too far from Umiat, had 62-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and Dead Horse 60 miles an hour, all out of the west-southwest, and Umiat Airfield 55 miles per hour. And also Barter Island wind gusts were coming up into the lower 50s for gusts, and probably will be something higher before they begin to die down later on tonight. And as a result, there is a blizzard warning continues out for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast and North Slope here until midnight tonight for, again, winds gusting 45 to 65 miles an hour, and the blowing snow associated with that reduced visibilities to a quarter mile or less, or just whiteout conditions at times anywhere in this area. Improving this evening with the warnings due to end around midnight, and there'll be a dramatic improvement after that, and actually winds will probably become light and variable with generally clear skies up there on toward morning and into tomorrow. But out over the Bering Sea, Aleutians, southern Alaska, Panhandle, no watches, warnings, or advisories out here for the next 24 hours. And satellite imagery showing this a big, huge area, high pressure here, and we've got moisture streaming northward, actually southeast to northwest here, and then taking a turn to the north, and then coming back in and around. And this batch of moisture coming in farther inland, or farther to the south than yesterday. We had a band up just hugging the Arctic coast. That's moved off to the east there. And now we have this moisture, another batch of snow coming in, bringing anywhere from 4 to 6 inches from the reports I saw. Some areas had more, some areas had less, with the heaviest amounts on the upslope areas like the Western Brooks Range. I saw during the last 12 hours places like Galena, Ruby, and possibly the Kotzebue, or Kotzebue Ambler, that was a play. And maybe Kotzebue as well, picking up 1 to 2 inches. Nome also not as heavy as it was earlier on last night with the gusty winds, with 24-hour amounts there, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches or more in the Nome area. The couple inches falling, tapering off as the bulk of the moisture pushes in. You can see as it streams eastward here, breaks up, becomes a little less significant. Disturbance passing by to the east up here, upper level trough, and that kind of putting a squeeze on the atmosphere, and resulting in those very strong winds up over the eastern North Slope and Arctic coast. By contrast, light winds, sunshine here from Bristol Bay across all of southern Alaska. Start picking up the high stuff as you get up into the northern Susitna Valley on toward the Alaska Range there. And then, but sunshine, Kodiak Island, temperatures pushing up near 40 degrees at mid-afternoon, probably will top out in the lower 40s. Even higher elevations, higher ridges, kind of strangely rising above freezing, and actually pushing up into the upper 30s. Glen Alps, 37 degrees at 3 p.m. this afternoon, and near 40 at Bly Reef. That due to the warmer air aloft here coming in with the upper level ridge and the more westerly flow. You can see cut off from the northerly flow, so milder air. Sunshine all the way down the southeast coast. And rolling this through once again, another system will come northward here on the west side of the ridge and spread more precipitation up into the Alaska Peninsula. And just kind of see the hints right there of the increase in the moisture. This front out to the west, really weak there, dragging across Shimeonat 2, really not producing much of anything of significance out there other than some clouds, maybe a few showers, but wind's not a factor at all. High pressure, more of an influence. Another center here developing. That also helped kick those winds up. So you had much lighter winds here over the northwest part of the state today. Areas of snow along this boundary here. The really this boundary separating the milder air, mostly aloft here to the south from the chillier air to the north there. And Again, precipitation amounts really lighten up as you head east, but the winds fairly strong, even at old Crossing gusts 40 to 50 miles an hour there, with 1,043 millibar high, weaker than yesterday, down about 10 millibars what we had over here yesterday, and high pressure holding in the Gulf of Alaska. Sunshine in the southeast coast for tonight. No change, dry, light winds, the Panhandle, no change here across southern Alaska. Still have this influx of moisture coming northward and then taking a turn to the east. Keeps pretty good chances of snow from, well, not so good in the central interior, but that increases back here to the west. You get a system lifting north, warm front, could see some more blowing snow St. Lawrence Island if the temperatures stay below freezing, that is, up across the Seward Peninsula to the northwest coast. But you can see high pressure shifting eastward late tonight, after midnight, maybe even before. Winds become light and variable with mostly clear skies. And here's the next system, increasing rain and wind a little bit as another surge of warm air comes northward. Low center just getting onto the map there. Won't actually pull northward, but let's take a look at tomorrow. The main low center stays to the south. Actually, low weakens here. Still have southeast flow, remnants, moisture coming up, rain, Alaska Peninsula, periods of light rain at times, nothing heavy, winds not heavy at all, and tightening gradient ahead of that next front, but that's staying west of the Shimiatu area, although you'll see an increase in the winds tomorrow afternoon. Cold front here keeps snow into the central interior as that moisture continues to stream eastward, but getting cut off now. Not so much moisture coming northward anymore here, so precipitation amounts will lighten up and eventually will tend to end. And still blowing snow with maybe gusts 25, 35 miles an hour western Arctic coast, but again, light winds, mostly clear skies on the east side. Clear down the eastern interior areas with another sunny day, light winds, lose the outflow winds already coming down. Seward had gusts 40 miles an hour earlier today. Those are much lighter now, also through the channeled areas of the North Gulf Coast. Now continue to diminish with, again, Sunday looking like Saturday today for the southeast coast. And then look for an increase in the clouds on Monday here, mainly along the north coast of the Panhandle, as well as the eastern North Gulf Coast, but showers that develop, if they do, will remain off the coast. And so it stays dry. Southern Alaska high pressure still holding at the surface here, right, just about right over Dehne and the Alaska Range there. To the north of that, just variable clouds with a few isolated snow showers, and then more clearing sunshine in the afternoon, North Slope or Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast. This system coming northward spreads rain to the Alaska Peninsula late in the day, and this actually is going to be kind of a pattern change. This will continue to move northeastward, bringing warmer conditions and cloudier and a little more active weather pattern into southern Alaska on Monday night, especially Tuesday and Tuesday night. Why it stays fair over the southeast coast. Another very weak trailing edge of a front dragging across the Aleutians there toward Adak. Lows tonight below zero, falling below zero or staying below zero, 15 to 20 or so below on the Arctic coast, milder south of the mountains there with everybody well above zero. Although Copper River Basin clear areas, maybe even North Waytoke, falling a little below zero. Single numbers again here, south central Alaska with the clear skies. Some areas still falling below zero, but I don't think you'll see the 10 to 15 below you saw around Kenai, Soldotna, as well as in the Susitna Valley you saw this morning, but still probably falling below zero, but generally a little milder and definitely milder out toward the southwest coast. Highs for tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, upper 20s to upper 30s again, depending on your elevation, and lower 30s out to the coast. Above zero, even along the Arctic coast, or even on the east side, Kaktovik up to 3, 40 to 45 for the Panhandle, near 40, Kodiak near 40 in the Aleutians. Lows milder, highs on Monday afternoon milder as well.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather, we've got a band of IFR here from the Bering Strait across St. Lawrence Island, areas of IFR extending southward here to Adak and Atka, and along the southern coasts of the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, VFR, Kodiak Island, and Bristol Bay, and all areas east and south of the Alaska Range, VFR, all the way down the southeast coast, and some IFR here up into the Koyukuk, Kobuk, Selawik Valley areas. That's going to be shifting up toward the Brooks Range in the afternoon. And we'll see does just that here on the afternoon forecast. So Enitovik, Adigan, Galbraith Lake, those areas becoming IFR possibly, especially on the southern slopes of the Brooks Range in the afternoon, staying VFR, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, north slope. Areas IFR here back to the west, and then pretty good area of IFR here, central Bering Sea down to the Aleutians, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, possible marginal VFR, southern Kodiak Island and Sitkinak, otherwise staying VFR just up to the north, Bristol Bay VFR, all of the Alaska Range now VFR in the afternoon, even north of the mountains there in the upper Tanana Valley VFR, but some marginal VFR just to the north, and then another VFR day for the Panhandle. Be another VFR day for the southeast coast on Monday morning as well, into the afternoon too. Otherwise, pretty good, a little better here, just some areas of marginal VFR, eastern interior, maybe around Denali there on the northwest or west side of the Alaska Range. Kuskokwim Valley VFR, possible marginal VFR, southern Kuskokwim Valley. I think that'll be more restricted, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta with a chance of IFR. Togiak Bay, mainly Cape Newenham though, out to east of the Pribilofs. IFR, possibly now pushing up into southwest Kodiak Island along the south coast of the Alaska Peninsula. Break here, central Bering Sea, and a band of IFR with the next front, weakening front, as it tries to push eastward there, western Aleutians. And for the afternoon, it really doesn't make much headway there. It stays out here to the west over Kiska and Amchitka. Some VFR breaking out, Adak and Atka, and a patch of IFR here along the southwest coast, possibly the Pribilofs, some breaks either side of that. Now just a band of marginal VFR here along the south side of the Brooks Range, which includes possibly, or mainly, the northern Koyukuk, northern Kobuk, out toward Kotzebue and into the Yukon Flats there. South of that area, good VFR, Tanana Valley, all of south central Alaska, Kodiak Island, VFR, and the Panhandle, VFR. Enitovik, starting out VFR, same forecast for Adigan, then as that moisture lifts north and northeast, becoming IFR in the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR the entire day, rainy, VFR, windy, VFR. Isabel looking good, and Mentasta no change, another VFR day coming up next couple of days. Tanita as well, VFR. Portage, VFR, and Chilkoot and White looking good, VFR. Freezing levels, a little more showing up here. Some warmer air aloft with that upper level ridge as it kind of weakens, slides off to the east. So we've got 6,000 to 8,000 feet now up along the North Gulf Coast, down across the Panhandle. And taking a look at icing, surges coming northward, this area shifting northeastward, so look for some icing threats between about 6,000 to 9,000 feet or so, give or take on either end of that. Extending down, kind of tapering off here into the northeast Bering Sea. Another batch here off the southwest coast, maybe the Alaska Peninsula. This one out here to the west, they'll be moving in Sunday night and Monday into the western Aleutians and kind of stalling out. And for the upper wind flow chart, jet stream south to north flow here, again pulling out warmer air, especially aloft northward here with the upper level ridge and the warmer air that's usually associated with it, ridging up into the interior, pretty deep trough out there here. Another ridge, kind of a complex high amplitude pattern there, and about the same at 9,000 feet. Not too big on the wind flow here, 20 knots, southwest maybe 25 in areas of the interior, and along and off the southeast coast. And at 3,000 feet, 15 to 20 knots in the interior, northern interior out of the southwest, 5 to 15 southern Alaska. Otherwise, wind's not much of a factor out here, except increasing out over the far western Aleutians, head of that next system. Turbulence, areas of light to isolated moderate chop along the Brooks Range, maybe the central Arctic coast, Seward Peninsula, Alaska Peninsula. Really nothing too serious anywhere compared to what it's been, and out over the far western Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Hello again, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. And joining us again talking about the augmented reality sandbox is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, and he's actually talking about a project from AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. A lot of acronyms, but some really fun stuff today, right, Eric?
You bet. We've got a learning tool that is a tool that's fun to use, and it really has a relevance to actually daily lives of anyone who goes outside and sees lumpy topography in Alaska. We've got a lot of mountains and such. You know, when I was younger and go on your first hike in the hills, say, you're given, maybe you're in the Boy Scouts or you get at the kiosk at the trailhead, a topographic map, a flat piece of paper with all these lines on it, bullseyes, long lines that curve back on themselves, say, perhaps things that look like this, a quadrangle or a topographic map. We've got here just to illustrate a couple of examples near Denali. Alaska has so much topography, so many mountains. And what are all these lines that we see? It can be tough to know what this means the first time you look at it. What we've got, all these lines represent lines of where the elevation of the topography goes through a certain level above sea level, say that this line represents where the mountains have gone from below 1,000 feet, mean sea level, up through 1,000 feet and above. That's your 1,000-foot contour. And when the mountain keeps going up, you're up to 1,200 feet, 1,400 feet, and so on. And that's how you get this little bullseye around the peak of a mountain.
Kind of makes layered slices, right?
Kind of like layered slices. Nice way to look at that. And when you see the lines are closer together, you're going up more steeply. If the mountain rises more slowly, it takes you longer in horizontal space to go through those different vertical increments. So
that is really hard to visualize.
Right. Imagine you're looking at a 2D piece of paper, two-dimensional piece of paper, but you're trying to understand what the three-dimensional world looks like. Well, enter the augmented reality sandbox. Yes, what is that? It is right here. We have the sandbox with us today, Sandbox 2.0, portable version. Built up at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And we've got a couple of folks helping out today.
Let's see, Alana Valaji, and she's a mechanical engineering student from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. If you want to give us a thumbs up there, Alana, thanks for helping us out today. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator from AKwx, also helping us out today. Thanks, Courtney.
And this tool here has a Microsoft Kinect to sense the level of sand in this sandbox. And then the Kinect feeds its information into a computer that then sends a signal to a projector to draw the appropriate topographic lines on this topography. The fun thing about this, as we can see here, is that the sandbox and its Kinect and its projector, they all work as a team. So here we've got a mountain in the middle of the sandbox. What if we took down the mountain to some degree? Watch as the software responds and redraws the topography.
Kind of a caldera forming there.
There you go, And what's fun about the sandbox too is it knows that gravity flows downhill, and we've got some water that's actually down in the lowest elevations. And what's happening now is we're making it rain a little bit. We'll fill up rain into that elevated lake bed, that caldera, as you said. And so now water is pooled up there. And what if you gouged out an outlet channel?
Glacial dam release.
There you go. The water flows out. What we're seeing here is a tool that allows people to touch and connect, Microsoft Connect, RRR, to connect two-dimensional topographic maps like what we have here, these flat things on a piece of paper, to the real three-dimensional world. I think this sandbox's real particular application as a learning tool to young people is, what does a two-dimensional map mean when it's trying to represent the three-dimensional world? This sandbox is kind of both at once. It's actually three-dimensional, lumpy topography there, the sand, but it's got these lines drawn on the three-dimensional sand that would be on a two-dimensional piece of paper.
Wow, that is a huge leap from the learning that we experienced when we were younger to how children and even adults are visualizing in these new forms of technology. Allows that to kind of reshape their thinking and visualize this in a very useful and absolutely hands-on way. It's amazing.
It's a hands-on tool, and
it's hard for me to sit here and not go play with that.
Well, that's what happened at GINA, up at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, when the first model was being made, the prototype with plywood and such. We had professional adult professor types had heard about this, and they came by because they wanted to see how it worked. And everyone becomes that idealistic, wonder-filled youngster.
Sure.
And you just can't help but play with that, and to see how it reacts in time, and
Right.
it's a dynamic learning tool, and it
Dynamic,
responds.
That's exactly the word.
And
Yeah.
you wonder what applicabilities beyond a teaching
Right.
tool for
Where does it
topography
go?
can it have? You can see how in Alaska we have inundation mapping is an issue. If you had water slosh inland, say in a coastal flooding event
Right.
on the western coast of Alaska or the Arctic coast, you could see this. The concept is illustrated here as an introductory learning method. I think this is a potentially good outreach tool for all of us in Alaska.
Okay, so not only just a topographical sense, a mapping sense, maybe something that leads into understanding of how geographic information systems work with GIS, but also geology, if we wanted to get into kind of the formations and the bigger land masses and the representation of the 2D map. We could go into hydrology, which is very important in Alaska, of course. And even just understanding the weather sense. Mounding up a big pile of sand could be that Arctic high pressure system sitting on top of Fairbanks, and the voids would be low pressure systems. This can go a lot of different directions.
Yes, exactly. It's not just landforms, but pressure has contours of high pressure and low pressure. And I wish I had this kind of a learning tool when I was taking
kidding.
Meteorology 101 back 25 years ago.
wow.
Would have been helpful, I think.
Probably would have gotten a better grade. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for coming by, Eric, and Alana and Courtney. Thank you so much for your help there in the sandbox. We are going to play in the sandbox a little bit more coming up tomorrow on our next edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We hope you join us for that. In the meantime, make sure you go to alaska.edu/EPSCOR. That's alaska.edu EPSCOR to learn more information about what we're doing with this augmented reality sandbox around Alaska. We'll see you next time on Alaska Weather Facts.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis here, still north of the Pribilofs, and we'll stay north of St. Paul Island there. And generally, the trend is for it to continue to push northward, but it'll be intervals when the winds go light that it'll start to just kind of meander around with whichever way the light winds are blowing. So it could be a slight southward drift in some area along the ice edge, but nothing significant like we saw here earlier in the month. And moving on, coastal water forecasts. North to northwest, 20 knots. South coast, northwest, 15. North coast, seas 5 feet. Lincoln Island, northerlies 15 knots, 3-foot seas. And central southern inside waters, winds will be out of the north, 10 knots with 2-foot seas. And the outlook for Monday, light winds continue over the inside waters here. Northwest 10 to 15 for the central and southern inside areas there, with seas up to 3 feet in Clarence Strait. Lincoln Island also looking at 3-foot seas with light northerlies at 10 knots. And the coast here, much of the coastline, northwest at 20 knots. Lighter westerlies on the extreme north coast at 15 with seas running about 6 feet. Prince William Sound, tomorrow, westerlies at 10 knots. Cook Inlet, northerlies at 10 knots with slight seas. Kamishak Bay, west at 10, seas 2 feet or so. And then small craft advisories for the Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast here for winds west 25 knots, but seas at 6 feet. And west 20 knots, 6-foot seas for the eastern North Gulf Coast. So that's under small craft advisory on both counts. And then for Monday, even lighter winds with 15-knot winds for the eastern North Gulf Coast, variable to east at 10 for Prince William Sound, southwest 20 knots here along the Kenai Peninsula coast down to the Barren Islands, northeast 25 for Kamishak Bay, and 20 knots out of the northeast for southern Cook Inlet. So a little bit of an increase here on Monday, and northeast at 10 for northern Cook Inlet. And for Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, variable to east at 10 knots, pretty light winds there, 2-foot seas, southwest 15 on the east side of the islands. And the Alaska Peninsula, small craft advisory, southeast winds, 25 knots, 5 to 14-foot seas, Bristol Bay east at 15. And then for Monday, brisk wind advisories for Bristol Bay, winds kick up 30 knots out of the east. Small craft advisories a little higher here, especially on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Southeast 30 knots, otherwise 25 knots, Bering Sea side. And Castle Cape to Sitkinak, southeast 25, east side of Kodiak Island, up to Fognak Island, 25 knots out of the south, and east 20 for Shelikof Strait. Fox Island, Zunmak Island, east-southeast 25 knots. Unalaska Island, southeast 25. Adak and Atka, northeast 25 on the Bering Sea side, north shores, and lighter on the south shores out of the north at 20. And the northerlies pick up about 25 knots toward Amchitka and then swing around due to that approaching weakening frontal system to 35 knots with 8-foot seas west of Kiska. And for Monday, southwest 30 knots, shimmy in at 2, 20 knots Kiska over toward Adak, central Aleutians, though probably Adak and Atka 15 knots out of the southwest. And the Fox Islands, north to northwest, 20 to 25 knots, with 25 knot winds being the exception, 20 knots the rule. And for the southwest coast, Kuskokwim Delta, southeast 20, Yukon Delta, southeast 15, first wind advisories, south 25, St. Lawrence Island, light winds for the Pribilofs, east 15, St. Matthew Island, and Norton Sound, south at 20. Monday's outlook, southeast, Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, 10 to 15 knots. Small craft advisories, St. Matthew Island, southeast 25, east 25. Brisk wind advisories, Kuskokwim Delta coast, northeast 15 for the Pribilofs, east 15 along the Yukon Delta coast. Eastern Boulevard Sea coast, much lighter winds in store for tomorrow, maybe even lighter than what's shown here, but we'll go with west-southwest 15 to 20. Either way, it's much improved from today. Southeast 25 possible on the central coast. And then brisk wind advisories also for the central coast, and then from Cape Beaufort to Wales for southerlies at 25. Followed by lighter winds there on Monday, southeast becoming southwest, 10 to 15 here up to Cape Beaufort, west 20 on the west coast, and back to brisk wind advisories, central and east coast, the strongest winds over toward demarcation point at about 30 knots. And for tonight, blizzard warning ends, eastern north slope and Arctic coast with a big improvement in conditions there. It stays snowy over the northwest interior through tomorrow, and Monday even drier.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.